a great camp can run in a parking lot. That is because of staff who are invested. That's because of culture and great tradition.
Kids have come to camp where they can feel like they're part of the community right off the bat. These kids can start to sing along. They're not just sitting there clueless going, I've never heard this before.
This is First Class Counselors, another innovative podcast brought to you by Camp Hacker. First Class Counselors is dedicated to young and up-and-coming camp mavericks. By equipping and empowering our on-the-ground staff, camp directors can rest easy, knowing that our campers are having the true life-changing experience that parents expect. Find our show notes and our blog for camp leaders and professionals at camphacker.tv.
AM Skyer is a leading insurance and strategic partner for many of the finest camps in America. AM Skyer partners with camps to provide public relations, legal, medical, behavioral support, and more. Experience the AM Skyer difference. Learn more at amskyer.com.
Welcome to First Class Counselors, where we give camp counselors insider tips and advice on how to make a camper summer the best it can be.
Whether you are brand new to the camp world or you've got a few years under your belt, self-improvement and a growth mindset is built into the DNA of every great staff member or every great first-class counselor.
My name is Oliver. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the Director of Camping Services at YMCA Camp Westwood with the Pawtucket YMCA in Coventry, Rhode Island. We are a rebuilding day camp that plans to introduce an overnight camp in the near future.
My name is Matt Wilfred. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the executive producer of podcasting and a consultant with Go Camp Pro. And we are back, Oliver. Welcome back. What is this, season 7-ish now?
No, season 8.
Oh my goodness.
Our season 7 was a little smaller, though. We did a small season 7. We had some big life changes going on. You became a father.
Yes.
I took over a new camp, an organization and stuff, moved pretty far. So it was a shorter season, but it counted. It was a season.
Yeah.
And now we're officially in season 8. Or is it series 8? Or what would you call it in Canada? Is it different?
I think we still do. It's one of those weird Canada things where we do season. We don't follow the UK in that thing. So let's go with season 8. And for our UK friends, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah. So we're excited to get back. We just got through summer. Matt did his thing. I did my thing, but we haven't recorded in a bit. So if we're bad, Matt said that he found someone who does the editing. I don't feel as bad now, but now the editor might come after me for saying that. But please, I'm going to do my best. I won't make as many mistakes as I think I am as I stumble over my own words saying it. But today, Matt and I are really lucky because we're here to talk to you guys as counselors and feed you guys the information on how to be the best counselors. But Matt and I we've gotten to a point from when the series started to where we're at now, where we've gotten to meet people. We've gotten to go to other camps. We've learned so much from others. We're so thankful. I recently, when summer ended, I got to do a little traveling and got to drive a little bit around the Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia area in the United States. And there's some great camps out there that I got to visit. And it got me inspired to start our season with not just us bragging about the great things that Matt and I have been a part of at our camps, but also brag about some of the things that we've seen from our colleagues and coworkers out there in the camp world. So today we want to talk about maybe some of the programs, the staffing positions that have been set up, and the programs, these amazing programs that these other sites are running that Matt and I have seen that, we want to brag for them a little bit. So you as a camp counselor who might be listening to this, what do you get out of this is the big question. And we kind of want to gear this episode in a couple ways. One is to inspire you to see what the potential is that's out there. Maybe you might be looking for the next stage in your career. Maybe you worked at a camp this summer and it wasn't the best fit. And all of a sudden you hear about what another camp is doing and you're like, man, that actually sounds really cool for me. I might want to hop on board and see how that works. So that's what Matt and I are focusing on today. But Matt, what do you think about when you come to this and we think about all the great things that some of our friends have told us while we've been at a conference or we visited their camp and we just go, man, that's really cool.
Yeah, Oliver, if you listeners haven't had a chance to visit other camps, like you absolutely must. And it kind of follows this neat, unique philosophy about the camp industry is that I really think great camp directors and most of them out there know that there is no like one best way to do anything. We all run programs in different ways, from the ways we like line kids up to the different sessions that we offer at camps. But sharing ideas and getting best practices from each other is what really makes our industry great. When I was a counselor, I was like, this is the way you sing this song. And God forbid someone else sings it another way. Or like I used to, think that my camp was the best. And I still think that my camp is one of the best places out there, my home camp. And I've seen some amazing other things that I've brought back to my home camp or suggested that they do now. And it just makes camp meet the moment and the current campers even better. So, and I also, on this show, sometimes we gear our conversations towards the overnight camp world, but camp isn't just overnight out in the woods. There is a type of camp out there for every kid, and that means that there's a type of camp out there for every staff member too. And when you work at a camp that you're excited to be at, that excitement is contagious when you work with the kids. So really, I think that whether you're coming into this brand new to working at camp, or like Oliver said, maybe you're looking to branch out, it's good to know what else is out there. And there's no better way to do it than to do some research. But we want to give you kind of an overview of what else might be out there for you to check out.
I think we naturally compare ourselves to others, right? Like you have to do your own thing and compare yourself to yourself for your own improvement and such. But like it's really important to go and see other places, see what they're doing, so you kind of know where the bar is, right? At a certain level, right? Like what is a sports camp doing versus what's my traditional camp doing for sports programming, right? Those are two very different things, and you as a young camp professional, you need to start getting an idea of what that gradient might be, right? And that comes from visiting and learning from others for yourself, and then figuring out what's possible for you. And I think a lot of things that we'll talk about today, like you might not take it directly home with you, but you might hear it and go, ooh, how can I adapt that? Or is there something we do already that's close or has the same purpose that I can mix in or do something a little bit special with? So, and I think our first category is a great way to get started on that, and that is great traditions. Here are some things that we just saw at other sites that really were a core part of what they do, but might not make sense to everybody else, and they do something special for that camp community. And I want to start this session for like, why do traditions exist? Like what happens? Camp directors usually will make this joke of like, good camp traditions take 3 years. And after 3 years, we've been doing it forever, right? Because, the staff rotates through, and then all of a sudden people are coming in and it's like, oh, that's just the way it's always been done. But sometimes those traditions start and they're really small. Sometimes a tradition starts from a joke, right? Like somebody makes a funny comment or does something, and then all of a sudden it just spirals and it becomes a part of that tradition. Or maybe something good came from it, a good feeling or something that made it stick. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, cool, we just want to do that every single year. I say this to my staff a lot of the time is when we're building a tradition, or if we're going to start to choose to have a tradition at our site. And now I've been at 2 sites where tradition building has been a really important part of our culture because we haven't had one. And that is, what's the purpose behind our tradition? What does it get done? Why are we doing this? Because if this is started because it was a funny night or something like that, and it doesn't have a lot of purpose, why are we doing it? Like fun is a huge purpose, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of things that I see at camps that sometimes are more like, it's a tradition because it was funny and it was maybe bullying or hazing, and those have to kind of get done away with in our current environment, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not kind. Like I have heard about camps who do like and I'm going to talk about these aging out ceremonies, or like middle of the night thing, and how they wake the kids up, how they go about getting them ready for this. There are 2 different ways to do it, right? One is hey, we're accepting you into this society, this culture, this world that we have, and we're welcoming you to be part of that family and community. And the other one is like scare them, wake them up, spit water in their face, like not good things. And I've looked at camp direction and like, oh, that doesn't sound great. Like you might want to fix something. And the ones we're talking about today are the the first one here, and what we want to talk about. So think about what the tradition is and what's the purpose, right? Does it make campers feel like they belong? Does it get people in understanding the system that you have, right? Like a lot of camps will have these like sing around the dining hall kind of things, where like if you put your elbows on the table or something, right? How does that culture work for you guys? What is the purpose, and what's the outcome of it in the end when you're developing or creating or choosing to keep these systems that maybe have been in place for a really, really long time. But I think that's really important. So the first shout out that I'm giving is to some friends of mine at YMCA Camp Hazen. They're in Connecticut. They're a fellow camp that I know pretty well. So shout out to those guys and that team. Once upon a time, I was meeting with one of their camp directors, and they talked to me about the CIT Walk. They have a big old lake on their property, and when their CITs are aging out, they do a large walk around the lake at the end of their time. And as they go around, there are little things that they pick up and do along the way that kind of heighten the fact that they were part of the CITs and that they're graduating and all of this. And I think I can't talk to the specifics of what they do because it's very much their tradition, and I don't want to mess up some of the details. But the purpose is celebrating their accomplishments as a CIT. It's reflecting back at their time as a camper, and it's also focused on who they're going to be in the future as part of that organization, right? You're graduated CIT, you went from being a part of the magic to now being someone who makes the magic happen. And talking to the person who was explaining this to me, it's a long walk. It's not a short thing. It's meant to let them reflect and take this time. And there's some team building, I think, and such that happens along the way. I might be mistaking some details of it, but it was a really cool experience. But the real focus here was it was reflecting on these teens and the experience they had in the camp and allowing them to leave. And I know a lot of camps that will do a CIT graduation ceremony as well. I think those are also really great ways to do it. But taking your oldest campers and putting them on a pedestal at the end of their time at camp and letting the rest of kids see them, especially if they've been good role models and representation of what your camp is, it really allows you to get a bunch of children who are in your camp program to look up to those people, look up to those role models, and want to be them one day, right? Or be even better than them, right? Because they don't know always the dark side of what you're dealing with in the CITs, because sometimes teens, cause a little bit of problems and stuff you got to deal with. They see these teens who are out there helping and doing good things for the camp community as a whole, and these kids think and want to base who they're going to be at camp off of those great role models. So if you're celebrating those CITs, you're celebrating the success, it's really good. And CITs, counselors in training, leaders in training, or staff in training, it's that upper echelon of teen campers that we kind of talk about. What are you doing to make sure that you're putting them in a good reflect? So I remember hearing about this CIT walk that they did, and I was running CITs at the time, and I was like, that's definitely something I can steal. So I definitely modded some things and brought it back to my own camp. And I always thought it was a phenomenal way to end the CIT program. But that's my first one. I'm going to let Matt take the next one.
Cool. I love anything like intentional with yours. Some camps call them LITs, right? Leaders in training, those oldest campers. I think it's important too, because I think sometimes it's hard for those listening right now. You might have been a camper transitioning to a staff. I always find it really hard. I did as a camper, right? When you're like, okay, now I'm taking on responsibility. The camp experience is not for me anymore. So any way that you can do that in a intentional way, I think is really great. So that's a great one. I want to share one from my home camp, so the Cairn family of camps in Baysville, Ontario, Canada. The one thing that I think, as if you're a counselor there thinking about, I want to work at a new camp, or I'm working at a camp, I would ask some questions about what do they value? What is the culture there? Or what is like the staff culture, and what do staff traditions look like? And this is kind of programming because it's built into the schedule of the camp day, but I really love that the Cairn family of camps does intentional staff time during the day. So after dinner within their camp program, and I know you as a counselor, you might not be able to affect this change at your camp, but you could talk to your directors about it. What they do is they have the kids get some free play time where they can be in the dining hall or in the courtyard or the lower playing field, which is essentially not a very big area. So you make sure that camp is that ratio, but you let the kids kind of do what they want for an hour within some good intentional structure. And then the staff goes and does a big group time together where they sing together. They do like a reflection on the day. Sometimes it has a bit of a Christian message to it. Sometimes it's, some more get to know you time or hang out with each other, but it's really intentional time for the staff to reconnect. They're not on with kids. They usually end that time with talking about what the evening wide game is going to be. So there's a little bit of meeting business in there, but it's kind of a nice reset at the end of a full day before the last couple things before bedtime. So asking about what a day in the life from a staff perspective is a great question if you're looking at prospective camps to work at, and seeing if there's any of those moments where the directors or whoever's running the program has built in some of that time for staff to not just like breaks are important, but also like time to connect with each other, I think is also extremely important. So shout out to Karen for that. For over 100 years, summer camp has been an integral part of the AM Skyer world. Today, AM Skyer is a strategic partner for summer camps across the country, building personal relationships and providing valuable resources to their clients and friends. Every day, AM Skyer is proud to support camps and help make them safer. AM Skyer was founded by Abe Skyer in 1920 and is now in the third generation of Skyer family leadership. Henry, Jeffrey, Amy, and the experienced AM Skyer staff eat, sleep, and breathe summer camps, in addition to fostering partnerships with camps that last for decades. Give AM Skyer the opportunity to find solutions for your most challenging insurance needs. They go above and beyond. Learn more at amskyer.com.
And so for my next one, I want to talk about some inclusive practices that I learned about from, I believe her name was Kate. She's from Camp Champions down in Texas. And they have an amazing practice and tradition that they do with their first year campers. They first of all, they have an entire team. Might talk about that later, but they have staff who are designated to first year campers and their experience coming to camp, right? Obviously, first time campers are maybe a little scared. Camp is a new thing for them, right? There's a lot of new experiences that come with that, and making sure that you adapt and make them feel comfortable is really important. So that's why the purpose behind some of these traditions that they have. But one of the things that they did is they would do a first year breakfast, I think it was, or a meal at the very least, for all the first year campers to come. And they did it at their director's house, their director, whose name is escaping me right now. But the kids would get to go, and I think they did like milk and cookies and a couple other things. But it was just meant for these first year kids to start to feel like they were part of the camp. Right. And they did a lot of other little things too. Like I think they sent out like recordings of the camp songs when the kids came to camp. If they weren't hearing songs for the first time, they would send out like little videos of like frequently asked questions, but like directed at the camper. And I've heard about several camps that do something like this. And it feels a little weird if your camp has never done something like this, because it is a lot more work and a lot more effort. But the feeling that these kids have coming to camp, where they can feel like they're part of the community right off the bat, when someone starts singing that camp song, like Little Red Wagon, or the Rattling Bog or something like that, these kids can start to sing along. They can be a part of the camp, right? They're not just sitting there clueless going, I've never heard this before. Everybody else knows this song and I don't.
Yeah.
But Camp Champions did this really phenomenal program of making sure that these first year campers felt like they were part of camp. And it started with that breakfast. It started with those videos that they sent out. But they have that tradition of having a team that is meant to make these campers feel welcomed. And you as a counselor are not going to, go and hire a team of people on your camp that will be attributing to first year campers. But what you can do is understand the importance of that and do little things in your cabin to make sure that your first year campers feel welcome, right? So, do you maybe write down the lyrics of camp songs, or get a printed copy of them so that you can practice them in the cabin with the campers on the first or second night or something like that, so they can start to feel more comfortable? Do you make sure that your cabin has maybe like a sign up on the bunk for your camper when they arrive? Those are little things as a counselor you can do, but Camp Champions just does a wonderful job of really highlighting the importance of that. And they've put traditions in place to make sure that these campers feel special and part of camp right off the bat. So it's a great one. And it's definitely changed like my mentality as a camp director of how important it is to address the needs of those first year campers and how we make them feel welcomed.
Yeah, and just a plus one that, Oliver, I think a tip that I would give too is involve the returning campers in including the new campers. Find a way to like secretly pair them up. People have heard me talk about welcoming ninjas. It's like a staff inclusive thing. If you've seen any of my like conference sessions, I talk about it all the time. But you can empower the returning campers and say like, hey, Agatha is brand new to camp. Can you just, make sure that Agatha has like a place at the table and it knows the traditions, but like, they don't need to be all over Agatha, but making sure that they're watching out for them is a nice way that, if you have like 8 to 10 other kids in your, in your group, you're not gonna be able to get each one. But I think empowering kids is always a smart way to do it as well. I'll give my last one really quick. A camp that I worked at did this program called Steps in the Right Direction that I think every camp should find a way to do. I think it's brilliant. And you, as a counselor, you could totally do it just in your cabin if you wanted to. But what they did was they had a printed like hundreds of thousands of these little footprint stickers, and you could do whatever you want. Why was it footprints? There might have been a story behind it that I don't remember right now. But at lunch, at the end of lunch, they would get the microphone out in the dining hall and they would say, okay, it's time for Steps in the Right Direction. And you would see kids just like rise from the table and get in line. And a whole point of a step in the right direction was that the kids just got to give a shout out to a staff member or a camper who did something really special for them. So they say like a step in the right direction for Oliver for being such a great podcast host with me. And then the staff would be positioned around the dining hall with those stickers and they would walk around. And if you got a step in the right direction, you like a sticker just like stuck to you. And it was really fun to see the campers and the staff would have them like stuck to their body. And then it turned into like we would have to eat lunch quickly because we would get behind in the schedule because so many kids wanted to come up and give steps in the right direction. I just think it was any program where you can like recognize publicly each other's accomplishments or just like being kind, I think is a great one. So I would encourage you, if not for your whole camp to do it for your cabin. How cool would that be at the start of rest hour? Be like, hey, we're going to do steps in the right direction before rest hour and give a chance for kids to shout each other out.
Thank you for the compliment. I would love to get a sticker for being awesome. There is a camp, I'm trying to think of what their name. They're down in Florida, just south of Tampa Bay, and they do the same thing but with buttons. They found a button maker, and then they like print just paper of different types of like buttons, but and then they'll give them out as an award. So their staff and campers, I believe, will have like hundreds of buttons by the end of the summer of just really funny things. Usually they're like memes, like really like kind of strange things like you're not going to understand unless someone explains the button. So it's really cool if you ever meet one of their staff members who has like their backpack covered in these things of like you like ask them like, oh, what does that button mean? And it's like a meme of like the guy with his girlfriend walking by, and then it's like, oh, that one's from this, da, 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 da. And then they start telling you a story. It's such a cool way for like staff to be able to relive those moments because there's a reason, there's a story behind every button, and it really lets them take it off. So I like the stickers are an amazing way to do that as well. Button machines are like stupid expensive for some reason, like 200, $400 or I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you got to have the buttons, but the stickers is a great way for you as a counselor. Definitely. I love that adaptation to it.
This camp that I'm talking about too really did. If you've seen shrink art before, if you get the shrinkable kind of laminate paper that you can draw on
shrinky
it,
dinks.
shrinky dinks, yeah, different things, and they like will punch a hole in it, and then they'll tie it to their like little name tags that they have too, and you can make your custom ones. The campers made one for my dog once, so I have a little like chomper shrinky dink that I keep on my desk that is very cute. So those are fun too.
Shrinky dinks is such an amazing way to run a program at your camp. I have staff. We have shrinky dinks here. I have staff who like will do earrings and necklaces
cool.
and all different types of things. So there is so many options with shrinky dinks besides just shrinking some plastic or making a keychain. So a lot of opportunities there. Okay, so let's talk. Well, great way to move into this because Shrinky Dinks is a program, something fun to do, an activity. We're going to talk a little bit about programs that we've seen and we really enjoy. And this is almost the inspiration for this episode. So this is like my big shout out to a camp that I just visited and just outside Lexington, Kentucky, called Newton's Attic. They are a day camp down there that is completely STEM based. They do all science, technology, engineering, mathematics. What a cool program. I highly suggest checking it out if you have a chance, or at least like going to their website and seeing what they do. The best way I can say is they're like a backyard space camp, but it's more like STEM related. The founder of it he's a great inventor and builder. So he's built like a small roller coaster in the back of their camp that the kids can ride. They have a gyroscope that you can sit in and it spins around while you sit in the chair. They have a giant like bow and arrow crossbow that they can launch things from. They do rockets and all these cool things. They have a battle bot like competition that they do where they like make little robots, and this is all kids doing it, right? And they've designed their program so they're like week long. You can do like a week of Galileo week, and you like do all of Galileo's inventions. It's such a cool program overall, but they're like the real core is that they've built this little tiny workshop, and then from there they build out and they can do all these other types of things. But he's gone out of his way to build those really cool things that I talked about, and he has an amazing mind to be able to do those. But also, like I want to highlight, like some of their programs are really small, really easy to do, and like you can learn some of them very quickly and be able to bring STEM into your program with kids and make science fun. And that's what he has done, right? Like he has the big flashy things that make his camp really amazing and such a cool thing for directors to look at. But he has programs in that are counselor run, right? These are staff members who have a love for engineering, and they are able to come in there and be able to build and do these things. So if you are a staff or a future staff member who is looking to do some really cool things in STEM, reach out to Newton's Attic because they have some great stuff. I hope I'm not gonna get them bombarded with some emails and things, but it was such an amazing experience to go and see there, and it was definitely inspiring for me, who is a nerd myself, to be looking at this basically just a giant nerd camp of really cool things to do. I'm super jealous of some of the things, and I'm definitely reaching out to them and seeing how I can incorporate some things of their program. But it was really crazy to me how easy some of these STEM activities were and how inspirational they could. Like they had a coding lab if you're a tech person, but they had free software that they would teach kids coding on, and the kids would have a blast. And it was just a really cool experience to go and see. I highly suggest looking into them. But it's a little bit of STEM programming for you right there.
I
Matt, what
love
you got? What are some cool ones?
I love first of all, I went on the website and I got completely distracted and stopped listening to you because I was like, ooh, pretty roller coaster. So I'll make sure that the website for Newton's Attic goes in the show notes. But what you also said there about how staff created their own programs, that kind of sparked to me. I mean, when I was the director at Pierce Williams, and I think they still do this, there's such a strong culture of staff creating their own sessions. And I know a lot of camps do this, but I know that there's a lot of camps that don't, that might just follow like the regular, like you're going to go to archery, then to swimming, then to, And I think counselor run programs and like counselors sharing their passions with kids, it's amazing. And then especially letting kids like choose to go to those sessions and having camper choice models of programming, I think is really powerful. You get less behavior issues because kids really want to be there. Staff are enthusiastic about running it because they're passionate about it. Like when Pokemon Go was just starting, I also, side note about Pokemon Go, it's like still a thing. I just learned that. Again, we're going to show our age many times in here, but I saw a bunch of people Pokemon going to the park yesterday when I was out, which is amazing. But staff created their own Pokemon Go program that I think I might have talked about on the pod before, like because they love doing it. And they're like, okay, we can do this for an hour with kids. And they ended up taking like a bunch of ball pit balls and creating Pokeballs and running around camp and like catching the staff. And then they would do like Poke battles with the staff in the dining hall at lunch. It was hilarious. It was amazing. I got to be a Snorlax, so I just like slept. It was super fun. And like that's where things like trick shot programs that like when Dude Perfect was just getting popular, kids wanted to do that. They were excited about it and the staff were excited about running them. The other one I'll quickly shout out to are the Marauder Sports Camp programs, which happens at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. They have a really cool program. I think I'm going to get it wrong. Natalie, you can email me and tell me I'm wrong, but I think every day after lunch or every other day, they do a big run. It's a sports camp. Kids love being athletic when they're there. So they do a big run, but they have different routes, different colored routes that were basically different lengths around the university that the kids would run. And what I liked it from an accessibility standpoint, that like kids who might not be able to run as fast, they could do the small ones, still feel that sense of accomplishment. Staff were like cheering all along the way. So it was super positive no matter which one you did. But the route that you were able to take was based on like the time that you got in an earlier event at camp. So you would qualify for the harder length if you got a good time in something else. And what I like about that, besides just the like, I love progressive programs, ones where you like unlock new abilities. Like I've seen a fire building program or like an outdoor living skills program that lasted all week. And like once you demonstrated that you could use like a pocket knife, or there was something even before that. Like you could identify the safe way of holding a stick or something like that. You graduated to the pocket knife, then you graduated to the axe, or to the hatchet, then the axe. Like you're growing and gaining different things. But I also like that when camp programs tie into other things throughout the day, so that campers are building excitement from like something that happened at breakfast affects something that happened after dinner. So there's like a bit of like storytelling and narrative that goes into the programs that I think creates a little bit of like continuity throughout the camp day that can sometimes be pretty disjointed when it's like 9 to 10 we go to archery, 10 to 11 we go to music and drama. I think finding some like interconnectedness, whether through you know leveling up or through storytelling, I think that's really special when programs can do that.
I think too, you bring up a great model of YMCA camp in South Carolina, Siegel Seafair. Sorry if I got your location wrong. I'm pretty sure they're South Carolina or maybe North Carolina. They're down in that region of South, we'll say Southeast United States,
In the
in the Carolinas. They have a great program where they have these little books, and they've been doing this for years. And other camps have tried to or try to copy what they do, but it is very much like that. The campers, they come, they get their little book, and inside there's all their different activities. And as campers go through, they can progress, and it's kept. But those campers will keep those books their entire camp career. So it's a really big part of what they do. It's kind of the heart and soul of what their programming is.
Nice.
But it's really cool because it's campers developing skills. It's them learning how to do these things better, and it's development, which I think is really important. Which is kind of like stealing from the program that I'm going to talk about right now, which is my friend Charlotte down at Why the Pines. They started something called I'm going to say this wrong because Why the Pines has two sites. They have Okanagan and Matalianaque for boys and girls, but the Okanagan side I know has the Okanagan character universe. Charlotte is going to come after me for messing this up when I do. And I've talked to her so much about it, but they have essentially a set of different things that campers are working on while they're there. And I'm going to cheat a little and use their website for help, but they have things they call them like the Ascender, the Elder, the Spirit, right? The Stargazer. Each one has a different value. They're inspired by different campers or parts of the lore of the site. They all have different logos as well, which makes them a little bit more special. And the campers will work on these, and each one is focused on a certain thing. Like for example here, I'll go over the Elder potential here, which is to value each other. It was inspired by their chief Okanagan in the 17th century, when the Lenni Lenape, namesake of their camp, on his deathbed he famously said, "Be plain and fair to all as I have been," right? So it's all about valuing and respecting each other. So the campers get these as they come in through camp, and they earn these badges and such as they do stuff throughout camp. Very much a character building universe, but an amazing way for you maybe as a counselor to recognize things within your cabin. You can create your own mini universe with your cabin and say, hey, in our cabin, these are our values, these are our things, and it helps you create a tradition and a program inside of your cabin that helps with that development. I always thought this was an amazing program that they ran, that was part of their traditions obviously, but also part of their dynamic of camp, and they integrate it into all of their activities and such they do. So really, really cool gamification of camp. So if you're not familiar with gamification, it's kind of like taking video games and putting them into camp, but it's not video game at all. It's just taking this leveling up process or earning points to continue to the next level. And they've done this because they've seen that younger generations need that kind of experience. That it's the world they've been brought up in, and it's a way that they've been trained to think, act, feel. So it's Okanagan's way and the Why the Pines way of trying to get kids to buy into this program of developing their character. And you know what? It's not much different than what we've been doing for years. We're just giving it a definition and calling it gamification and making it work for the new generation. So it's a really cool program. Definitely check it out. It's very appealing too as you go through their website and you learn about all the different things that campers can be working on. So I think it's a great program. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about some facilities that have been impressive to us. For me, a lot of times when we talk about facilities, a lot of people will say, well, is it a rustic camp? Is it a refined camp? Is it a pretty place? Do I feel comfortable sleeping there? And that's up for you to decide as somebody who's going to camp for the first time, or maybe trying to pick your camp. Like, what level you're comfortable. Are you a tent camper, or I need a nice cabin, right? I need AC. Like I can't do this without it. And every camp is different. It does not mean that the AC camps are any less gritty than the tenting camps. They might have something that they find another way to build grit and develop campers, right? Everybody has their own experience. I think I'm gonna focus a little bit maybe like on aesthetics, I guess. I kind of came up in a camp community that was very much about like, making your camp look pretty refined and well maintained. Not necessarily like, like retreat facility, but certainly like, oh, everything is, colored, like painted well. There's no graffiti. My dining hall was not the ones that had like all of the banners and plaques and stuff hanging up. It had a very clean look to it, because we did do retreats and stuff throughout the year, and that just wasn't the look of ours. But there is a camp that I really loved when I went to visit, and I always think that it was just a beautiful little spot, and they used their property so well. And that was High Harbor down in YMCA Camp High Harbor, just north of Atlanta, Georgia. My friend Jessie's down there, she's running it, and she does a phenomenal job. She's such an amazing camp director, and their facility is so, I don't I always loved the movie Hook growing up with Robin Williams, and he plays Peter Pan. So he's all
It's one
grown
of the
up, he goes
best.
back.
That's like core childhood memory. The food,
Yeah,
the
right.
food, like the imaginary food. I still want to eat that.
Yeah, there's a scene, they're like down at the docks where like Hook parks his pirate ship. Is this like cove, like Pirates Cove or something like that? And for some reason, when I walked into High Harbor's little swimming area, they're like their whole camp is kind of around this little cove, and they have all these wooden docks that kind of walk you out to the different swimming areas. I flashed back to the look, feel, aesthetic of those docks and Hook, and I like could not get it out of my head. I think it's so cool. And it was such a nostalgic feeling as far as facilities. And I think that's something to think about when you're going to pick your camp, is like, some camps are really invested in that. And like, what is it like having that uniformity and that, and a single look. Another one I've heard about is Tecumseh. They have like this kind of Westerny, like village feel. So I always really enjoyed the High Harbor look. I was really lucky to get a tour down there. Definitely check it out. For a camp director maybe listening, they have 88 acres. They're a pretty small camp property, and I know others will come out and like, we're only 15 acres. For an overnight camp, 88 acres is pretty small, and they do such a phenomenal job using it. So I want to say it doesn't always matter how much space you have. Sometimes it is about the core, the program you run, and how you look. So that's my property I want to shout out. What do you got, Matt? What's your property that you're like, that facility is really cool?
Oh man, there's two that come to mind. One, I did a visit this year at a autism specific summer camp. Autism Ontario runs. They have a couple different programs, but the one in the Niagara region I really liked. It was a day camp program, and it was for folks that might not traditionally get to go to other camps because they don't have enough supports at those other camps. So every camper had a one-to-one staff, and it was an example of a camp that it was run out of a community center, but they had their own couple rooms, and then they were right next to a park that was part of the community center, so like a playground structure with a splash pad and swings. And it was great. It was an example of a camp being really intentionally run with great programming that was run in a local community. And I think it's important that we talk about those types of camps too, because it's not like the typical overnight ones. And then I'm going to completely disregard what I just said there and talk about the complete other end of the spectrum. And that's Camp Pathfinder in Algonquin Park, which is a provincial park here in Ontario. It's one of the biggest ones. They're probably the biggest one in Ontario. And they are on an island in the middle of the park. And they have power. They have like an electricity line running to like do the main things that they need. And so it's not completely rustic, but every quote unquote cabin is a platform tent. So it's got a solid base and a canvas tent over top, and then cots in those platform tents. And they have handmade cedar strip canoes. They have a fleet of maybe 75 because it's a tripping camp. It is the center site is home base for campers for a certain amount of time, but for the most part, kids are out on multi-day canoe trips. So they're not even at camp. But I really like that it has that kind of rustic feel. And I stopped working at camp a couple years ago, and then I like very quickly became cityified. Like the mosquitoes started to bug me a little bit more when I went up to camp. I didn't like being in the sun as much. I definitely wear more sunscreen now than I did before, but I had a chance to sleep in one of those platform tents this summer. And after being somewhat uncomfortable with the mosquitoes for maybe 45 minutes, I heard like a loon call and had the fresh air hit me. And it was just one of those like really great return to, for me, what was like nostalgia about camp. So whether it be in a community center or, platform tents in the middle of the woods, there, like I said, there's a type of camp for everybody. And I think it's one of those things that you do your research on before deciding, that you want to go forward with working there.
And I think there's so many beautiful properties out there. Like whether like I can think of like Hidden Valley, they're up in Maine. They have a beautiful property from like an old farm ground, like an old New England farm ground. It's so beautiful. Or Kyla is out on the ocean in the West Coast, out of Seattle. They're on Orcas Island, and they're just beautiful views every single day. Like you can see an orca, swim by at sunset and it changes your life,
Yeah.
right? So there's so many beautiful properties. It's about finding the one that's right for you. And Matt, just to let you know, like sunscreen is important. You should put
I
it on.
know, I know. Yeah, yeah.
But I know what you're saying. I'm definitely getting older and being much more responsible about my sunscreen
I
wearing
know.
now. So I feel the feels. But definitely, yeah, once upon a time as a counselor, I was just walking around and be like, sunscreen, what does sunscreen do for me?
Yeah.
Just take the burn. But
I think before I know we want to wrap up in a second here, but I think it's important that we emphasize, and I think we've kind of said this. I think one of my main like core philosophies about camp, and I've taken this from Beth and Travis Allison. They say people before program, and I really believe that's like people before property before program, or people before program before property. Like I think it's the facilities and the cool programs and all of the things we've talked about. I think that it's really important to remember that those are only certain parts about what makes camp great. And I've heard people say that a great camp can run in a parking lot. And that is because of staff who are invested. That's because of culture and great traditions like some of the ones that we've talked about. So I don't want people to take away from this episode that you have to work at a certain like aesthetic of camp, or that it has to have a very specific program. I think that you can bring good vibes and a positive culture to any camp that you work at. And at the end of the day, as we always say here, it's all about the campers. So no matter where you are, it's about making the experience for those campers great, because that type of camp is either what that family can afford to send their kids to, or it is what is comfortable for those kids. Like the kids at platform tent camp, are might be a little more comfortable with the outdoors. Not all of them, but the reason that some kids might go to day camp is because they, it's not part of their culture to go be away from their families for a long time, or being outside in the direct sun is not something that they're used to or able to accommodate. So no matter where you are, it doesn't change the fact that it's all about the kids.
hey, yeah, I can't hit home on that any more than you did there. It's so important to understand that every camp is different, every program is different, the traditions, everything different, different, different. It's about finding a place for you to be a part of that, right? And and a place where those kids feel comfortable. And it's your job as a counselor at the end of the day. No matter what your property is, no matter what those programs are, your job is to make sure that those kids feel as though they are getting this, to feel as though this experience they're having is a fulfilling one, that they're going to walk away with something amazing and memorable. But that is our topics for the day. And to finish off, we're going to do what we always do. Our first one of the season, our EGGLE, which is our ever growing, ever learning. It is a trick, a tip, a game, or a song for counselors to use to become better every day. I'll kick this off with a really simple one. I got no costume closet at my camp. We are building our costume closet at camp. It is very small because it never existed before. And 100%, I have been copping out all summer and saying, I'm going to order the inflatable costumes, with little fans and inflates. And, it means I don't have to go out and buy a bunch of different costume stuff that all gets set up. I got a decent costume closet myself, but I teaching staff costumes and how to build them and stuff. It's a challenge at a camp that hasn't done these things in the past. So I accumulated many an inflatable costume this summer. They are my closets, ready for future summers as well. But I will say that at the end of the summer, I got a little video from my boss that was because he was making fun of me because we're both camp professionals. And he goes, man, there's a lot of inflatable costumes, not really making real costumes. And I go, all right, I get it. Like, I know I want more real costumes, but this is what I got. And then he sends me this video at the end of the summer on TikTok, which is another camp who I have no idea who it was. It was just a video, and it was all their staff dressed in the inflatable costumes that the camp owns, and they did a race across the field wearing those costumes, and it was the most dumb funny thing I had ever seen. You can't run in those. I have a 9 foot tall dragon inflatable costume, and if you told me to run in that, it would be ridiculous. And that's exactly what this race was. It was just staff running their hearts out, and it was great. They were tripping over themselves, falling over. Hopefully nobody got hurt in the video. Kids are laughing, but 100%, if you're a camp that has collected a good number of inflatable costumes, put them all together, make a little racetrack, let the kids do maybe do a Kentucky Derby of inflatable costumes, and let the kids bet on which costume that they're going to win the race. It would be probably really funny to see, but gotta love it. Inflatable costume race, that's my advice. And Matt, I see down below your Eggle is something we've already talked about today, so it's probably a pretty good one.
I'm totally not copping out because I've forgot to pick an Eggle before we recorded this, but I think it's a good one. If you don't know what Shrinky Dinks or Shrink Art is, I wanted to make sure it was in the episode, and I think it's a great Eggle for you to, you can pack up or you can buy a pretty affordable one at probably your local craft store, or if you must go to Amazon, and grab it and just practice it yourself. You can take any drawing and it shrinks down to like 1/10 of the size. But the key is if you want a hole to be in it to like turn it into an earring that you don't like, you could glue it after, make sure you get a single hole punch and punch it first, because they become pretty like thick and hard, so you won't be able to pierce it when it's done. So I think everyone should check out Shrink Art Shrinky Dinks. So there'll be a link to that in the show notes under the Eggle section for you to check out.
Generally, I think you do need like a little toaster oven, something that can heat them up and cause them to shrink. So just know that if you've never done before,
yes,
you do need a heat agent to get them to shrink. But they're phenomenal. You cut them into different shapes before they shrink, so you can get that going. And like I said, my staff have made them into earrings and all those different things. But it is a great craft if your site's not doing it, and they're super cheap. Like you can buy them on Amazon, like 100 sheets for like $15 or something.
Yeah.
And then you get your keychains or whatever you want to, however you want to attach them. But phenomenal little program there for you to take home and go for it. The other thing I will say is I was teaching my staff how to do these, and they were like not cooking them all the way. So we were getting these shrinky drinks that were like all like crooked and twisted. And they thought they were messing up, and I was like, nope, just gotta cook them a little longer.
Give it time.
Leave them in.
Let them
well
cook,
done.
as they say.
They gotta be well done.
Yeah.
But that's our Eggles for the day. We hope you can take something away from them. If you did enjoy today's show, we'd be so grateful if you left us a review wherever you are listening to this podcast. Your ratings, reviews not only help us tell us what you like about the show or what you don't like, but it helps us boost our rankings and helps more people discover the show so they can learn all this amazing camp stuff that we know. We also have a big shout out for someone today because Matt is handing off some responsibilities, which makes things a little bit easier for him too.
Yeah, big thanks, Ryan. Welcome to the Go Camp Pro team. Ryan is our editor for First Class Counselors, and he also edits the Camp Hacker podcast this season. So thank you, Ryan, for helping us get this show out there and keep Oliver and I on track. We need that, and we appreciate it. First Class Counselors is part of the Go Camp Pro podcast network, where you can find a podcast for camp professionals of every age and stage. If you want to check out more Go Camp Pro podcast, you can go to gocamp.pro/podcast. And if you want to find the show notes for this podcast, it's gocamp.pro/FCC. So go check it out.
And remember that camp is camp and camp is all good.
First Class Counselors is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening, friends.
Hey Camp Pros, we love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, we hope that whenever you share an idea that you learned from the Camp Hacker podcast, conference, summer camp professionals group, or wherever else, that you're quick to give credit where credit is due. That way, we can all encourage more Camp Pros to share the tips and tricks that will make camp better.